Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, when we turn the pages of history, we find some miraculous events that surpass human imagination. In today's video, we will take you back about 1500 years to the dusty lands of Mecca, a time when people's lives were miserable due to a lack of water. Animals were dying, and the arrogant tribal leaders were staring at the sky, hoping for a single drop of rain. But they did not know that the decision of the heavens did not lie in their blood oaths, but was hidden in the gesture of an innocent child. Who was that child, and what happened that day in the courtyard of the Kaaba? Let us witness that thrilling event of history. The time was the Ayyam al-Jahiliyyah, or the Age of Ignorance. It seemed as if fire was raining from the sky of Mecca. The soil of Mecca, which used to be blessed by the Zamzam water, was suddenly struck by a terrible famine. Day after day, month after month, there was not a speck of cloud in the sky. The sun seemed to have come very close to the earth, and its intense heat was cracking the stones of Mecca. Fields and farms had turned copper-colored from dryness. The date palm gardens of Mecca, which were once lively, now stood as dry skeletal trees. The water level dropped so low that the wells and springs lost their last drops. People would travel far to collect a little water, but they would return with empty pitchers and a heart full of despair. The situation became so terrifying that mothers could not put water in their children's mouths. Livestock was dying in agony from thirst. There was only the sound of crying in every house in Mecca. The Quraysh leaders, who considered themselves the masters of Mecca, were also helpless today. Their wealth, power, nothing could bring down a single drop of water from the sky. Finally, desperate, the great leaders of the Quraysh gathered at Darun Nadwa, their council house. Despair was clear on their faces. One elderly leader among them stood up and said with a trembling voice, "O Quraysh, do you not see? Our existence is in danger today. If we do not do something now, our lineage will be wiped out. Our homes will turn into graveyards, and our animals will die." Everyone said in unison, "Then what is the solution?" "We tried our best, but there was no result." Then, according to an old custom of the Age of Ignorance, they made a strange and difficult decision. A leader proposed, "Come, let us take a difficult oath today. Bring a large pot of animal blood. We will dip our hands in that blood and swear we will not leave the walls of the Kaaba until it rains. Either it will rain or we will die of thirst." In the courtyard of the Kaaba, putting their lives at stake, they made a bet with death. A huge pot of fresh blood was brought. The great leaders of Mecca, whose power made the whole Arab world tremble, lined up to dip their hands in that pot of blood. One by one, they raised their blood-stained hands and shouted, "O Lord of the Kaaba, our children are dying, our animals are perishing. Today, by this blood oath, we will not leave the cover of the Kaaba until you give us water. If rain does not come, our corpses will leave this place." That night, the air in Mecca was heavy. The atmosphere was tense. Those 32 leaders, who had sworn the oath by dipping their hands in blood, headed towards the Kaaba, breaking the silence of midnight. Each of them had stubbornness in their minds and the fear of death in their eyes. Among this group was one man who was slightly different from the others. He was one of the most respected leaders of the Quraysh. His name was Abu Talib. Although there was nobility on his face, there was deep anxiety inside. As Abu Talib was getting ready to leave the house, an unimaginable event occurred. From a corner of the dark room, a charming child came forward. He was only 9 years old, but there was such a glow on his face that it surpassed even the full moon. He was none other than the Prophet of the world, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Little Muhammad stood in the path of his uncle Abu Talib. He asked in a very soft and sweet voice, "Uncle, where are you going so late at night? You seem very worried." Abu Talib stopped. Looking at his nephew's charming face, his heart wrenched. He sighed and said, "Oh, my beloved nephew, do you not see the condition of Mecca? The sky is angry with us. Everyone's life is miserable due to the lack of water. So we leaders have sworn an oath that today we will stand holding the wall of the Kaaba until it rains. Either we will get water or we will die there." Hearing his uncle's words, it touched the young mind of the Prophet ﷺ. He looked into his uncle's eyes and requested, "Uncle, take me with you too. I also want to stand beside you at the Kaaba." Abu Talib was startled. He said, "No, son. All the angry and arrogant leaders of Mecca will be there. What will they say seeing you? Besides, you are small. Staying up so late is not right for you." But little Muhammad was persistent. He asked with such pleading that it was impossible for Abu Talib to say no. He loved his nephew more than his own life. Finally, he said, "Okay, come with me, but always stay by my side." Thus, at a great juncture of history, holding Abu Talib's hand, the little Prophet ﷺ headed towards the Kaaba courtyard. On one side were the 32 powerful leaders of Mecca, whose weapons were arrogance and a blood oath. And on the other side was an innocent child, whose weapons were only fear of Allah and simplicity. When Abu Talib reached the courtyard of the Kaaba with his nephew, it was a heartbreaking scene. All the people of Mecca, men, women, elderly, children, had gathered around the Kaaba. There was hope in everyone's eyes. Perhaps the sky would melt at this difficult oath of the leaders. Those 32 leaders stood in a line against the wall of the Kaaba. The smell of blood was still coming from their bodies. But seeing a child with Abu Talib, murmurs started among the leaders. Their eyebrows furrowed. An angry leader shouted, "Oh, Abu Talib, what have you done? Why have you brought a nursing child to this serious gathering of ours? Is this a game? We have come to decide life and death, and you have brought a child." Abu Talib felt embarrassed. He did not want to break the social custom. He whispered to the Prophet ﷺ, "Son, you go sit a bit behind. These are important people. They are getting angry." Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not argue. With his natural humility, he lowered his head, went behind the crowd and sat quietly. Then began the wailing of those leaders. They held the cover of the Kaaba and shouted, "O Lord, give us water, save us." The crying made the sky and air heavy. Hours passed. Night turned into dawn, but not a single piece of cloud was seen in the corner of the sky. The sun rose and its heat began to increase. In the scorching heat of noon, the leaders were soaked in sweat. Some were about to faint from the heat, but their stubbornness remained. They would not move. At this extreme moment, when everyone's hope was almost gone, Abu Talib felt someone pulling his sheet from behind. Annoyed, he looked back and saw little Muhammad standing there. His fair face had turned red in the sun. Abu Talib said in a slightly scolding tone, "Muhammad, you came to the front again. Go, sit in the shade." But this time the Prophet ﷺ did not step back. He said firmly but very politely, "Uncle, let me go to the front a little. I will pray. You will see, my Allah will not turn you away." Abu Talib was surprised. He said, "We 32 leaders cried all night and floated our chests with tears, yet the sky did not melt. And you, a 9-year-old child, will pray and it will rain? Don't be crazy, go." The Prophet ﷺ went quietly to the back again. But a while later, when people were about to faint from the heat of the sun, the Prophet ﷺ came again. This time, wiping the sweat off Abu Talib's face, he said, "Uncle, I cannot bear your suffering. Give me one chance." Abu Talib could not refuse this time. His nephew's confidence weakened him. He said, "Okay, come." The Prophet ﷺ came forward. He looked at the leaders and said, "You all stand behind me. I will stand in front and pray." Hearing this, the arrogant leaders got angry. They said, "What? We will stand behind this little boy. Do we have no dignity?" But the Prophet ﷺ said in a grave voice, "If you do not move back, it will not rain today. And if it doesn't rain, you will all be destroyed." Hearing that childish yet majestic voice, the great leaders of Mecca became mesmerized. They felt that this child was no ordinary person. There was such power in his words that it was impossible to ignore. The arrogant leaders, who were steadfast in their stubbornness just a moment ago, now moved back slowly like obedient boys. For the first time in the history of Mecca, Elderly leaders stood in rows behind a 9-year-old boy. The space in front became empty. Standing there alone was the best of creation, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Pin-drop silence was everywhere. Thousands of people held their breath and watched, waiting to see what would happen. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had not yet raised his hands to the sky. The leaders whispered from behind, "O Muhammad, we have moved back, now pray. Scream and call Allah like we did." Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied in a calm voice, "If I also do what you did, then what remains the difference between you and me?" People asked in surprise, "Then what will you do?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam smiled and said, "You just watch." Then he lifted his charming face towards the sky. He did not scream, he did not wail loudly. He just kept his large eyes fixed on the sky and spoke to his Lord in his heart. In that gaze was a plea, there was love. Just a few moments later, suddenly the color of the sky, burnt by the scorching sun, began to change. A piece of black cloud was seen on the horizon of Mecca. The leaders stared in amazement. In the blink of an eye, that small cloud took a huge shape and covered the entire sky. The sun, that was giving heat like fire just a moment ago, got lost behind the clouds. A cool breeze began to blow, and then that desired moment arrived. The sky broke open and rain poured down. Drops of mercy water began to soak the hot sands of Mecca. The dried-up trees seemed to regain life. The people of Mecca, overwhelmed with joy, began to get wet in the rain. They shouted happily, "Ya Muhammad! Ya Muhammad! By the blessing of your prayer, we have regained life today." The leaders bowed their heads in shame. They realized this rain did not come from their blood oath, but through the tears of this orphan child. However, dear viewers, this friendship of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with clouds and rain is nothing new. Even before this, in his childhood, many such miraculous events occurred which amazed people. Let us go back a little further into the past from that scene. When he was growing up in the house of his foster mother Halima, those days with the Banu Sa'd tribe, he was then only 3 or 4 years old. One day he came to his foster mother Halima and pleaded, "Mother, where do my foster brothers go every morning?" Halima said affectionately, "Son, they go towards the jungle and hills to graze goats." Then little Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Mother, I want to go with them too. I also want to see what the outside world is like." Halima was terrified. She knew how harsh the desert of Mecca was. She said, "No, son, you are still very small. You will not be able to bear the harsh sun outside. Besides, the desert path is very difficult." But from the side, the Prophet's foster sister Shaima spoke up, "Mother, you do not know, when Brother Muhammad is with us, a strange thing happens. We have seen that a piece of cloud from the sky always floats over his head like a shadow. The sun never touches his body. Wherever he goes, the cloud goes with him." Hearing this from her daughter, Halima's mind was filled with belief and wonder. She realized that this child was under the special protection of Allah. Still, being a mother, she did not want to let her peace of heart out of her sight. But when the child Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept insisting with great affection and innocence, Halima finally gave permission. The next morning, the little prince went out to graze goats with his brothers. That scene was something to behold. When he walked with a stick in his small hand, it seemed as if the whole jungle was paying him respect. At other times, the goats would scatter here and there. But when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was with them, the goats would graze calmly around him. Where he stepped, the thorns there would seem to move away. The brothers watched in amazement that in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they felt no hardship. There was neither the heat of the sun nor the fear of losing their way. Some time passed like this. Halima saw that her children were now very happy, and the goats also returned home with full stomachs. But the happy times did not last long. One day, Halima could not suppress the fear in her mind any longer. She called the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hugged him and said, "Son Muhammad, from today you will not go to graze goats anymore. I have heard that the movement of wild animals has increased on the other side of the jungle. I do not want even a scratch on your body. You stay at home. The Prophet, sallallahu